Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for September 11, 2024. We're going to be doing our Week 2 NFL picks against the spread for the 2024 NFL season. Before we get to the intros, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. As you can see on the screen, I have all this merch here. I think it's the mug's $14, shirts $17 to $20. I think very reasonably priced, and lots of cool stuff on here, including September is Lust Month, which you can see here. It is important to let everyone know that Lust rights are human rights. So make sure you get the shirt and celebrate Lust Month. It's we're almost halfway through, so you can let everyone know about it. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. That's really the best way to help support the show, because YouTube ads pay almost nothing. We've had some great super chats and super stickers from Slew, John Sanders, Cam Meek and Eagle. Also in the past, Degeneron, Kevin Kovac, Germ. You guys have been so awesome with your contributions. So any further help would be really appreciated. Also, please consider buying my book on Amazon. It's called Jerks of the College Years. It's actually the third book I've ever written. I have a section on the site called Jerks of the Week where I make fun of people in my neighborhood or at the gym. This is basically the same thing, just from my college years. I spent 6 years at Penn State. So as you can imagine, I ran into a lot of weird people, as you can see on the cover. Also, my second book is called How the 2020 MVP Was Stolen. I think we're going to write a sequel to this, but this is an expose about how Brett Favre tried to steal Aaron Rodgers' MVP award 4 years ago, which is kind of a wild story. So if you want to read about that, you can buy this book. So without further ado, we are joined by Eytan Shander of Odd Shopper. Eytan, how's it going? How's your week one?
Actually, so I've been with Odd Shopper. Well, always a pleasure, brother. Thank you. I've been with Odd Shopper tracking stuff, NFL, college, for 3 years now. And week one this year was easily one of my top 3 worst weeks that I've had in 3. And here's the thing. It shouldn't have been, right? And everybody says like, oh, yeah, it should have been. But, you look at some of these losses that I took. Titans, I know, is just like absolute punch in the groin there. But a couple of totals, right? Like the under in the Denver-Seattle game. Are you kidding me? Right? Like the under in the Arizona-Buffalo game that was cooked as soon as Arizona was up big. So I think I won some tickets because I didn't lose like everything. But yeah, man, I usually do pretty well in week ones. And this was not a good one for me.
Yeah, it was I talked to you on the phone earlier today, or no, it was yesterday, and at one point it seemed like during the Sunday afternoon window that like everything was going great for us, because we had Arizona was up 17-3. That was my pick of the month, by the way. I had a huge play on Tennessee like you did. They were up 17-0. Bengals Patriots was close, could have gone either way. Still, the only one that was out of control was Panthers. Not sure what happened there, but everything else seemed awesome. And I'm like, man, this is gonna be a great week one. But Will Levis, for some reason, thought he had to be a hero despite being up in the fourth quarter. If he just handed the ball off to Tony Pollard, the Titans would have won the game and covered for us. And if that would have happened, I would have won 14 units on the week. I still won 3 units, so still a winning week. But still, it could have been a lot better. Just really disappointing how that game went up. But still happy to get the Arizona win. We hit the same game parlay in the Chiefs-Ravens game. We almost hit the same game parlay in the Lions-Rams game, but Puka Nacua got hurt, so that was tilting there. Yeah. We hit every other leg of that parlay except for Puka Nacua. So anyway, except for that one game, really pretty encouraging week. Although, like I said, not sure what happened with the Panthers, but we're going to discuss them early because I think they're the third game on the slate or whatever. I think on Matthias' Panthers suck. That's what happened. Well, we'll see. And then John said, I told you about the first quarter. You'd be like, how the hell did I talk myself into betting Bryce Young and Panthers? Well, John, you're in for a treat here. So we'll get into that in a little bit. Paul Vanna says he's trying to get us to bet Malik Willis this week. It's just as bad. So yeah, we'll see. And no, Jacob's not.
It can't be worse. It cannot be worse than what we saw with Will Levis. Let me tell you something. If somebody was brand new to the NFL, had no idea about anything, it was just given the bare example and explanation of what the rules are to follow a game,
Mhm.
it would be impossible for them to think anything other than Will Levis was on the take.
Yeah.
Some of those, I mean, come on, Walt, right? Like, I'm not saying the game is fixed. I'm just saying if you had no idea about
Right.
this sport and you were watching, like, some of those decisions made no sense unless Levis was working for the other side.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I was talking to my developer who he didn't watch the games, and he asked me how the week 1 went. I told him about the game. I told him exactly what happened, and he goes, sounds like he was on the take.
I'm telling you. I mean, sometimes it's the people that don't watch. Sometimes it's the people that are fully removed that you can get some insight from. We are so fully immersed in it. I'm just saying, like, that was insanely awful. Malik Willis cannot be worse.
Yes.
Nobody can be worse than what you saw from. And I'm not saying on that team. I'm just saying in general. Maybe Bryce Young. Maybe Bryce Young is still worse.
Bryce Young might set the futility record. I don't know. It's like Jamarcus Russell levels bad with him. But yeah, we'll talk about that. Malik Willis couldn't get a throw off. He was literally all he had to do. Well, I wouldn't blame him for that. He just had to come in and throw a Hail Mary. Like, it's pretty
That was
rough.
it. Right.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, told you no way the Jets win at 49ers. So yeah, good call on your part. The best part of the show is mental gymnastics Walt does. Can't wait to see the gymnastics on the Panthers. Well, you'll be looking forward to it, I promise. All right, let's get to the games. The first one, so it's probably not going to be on our super contest card unless you have like a super strong opinion about this and you think it's like your play of the year. Bills at Dolphins. Dolphins are favored by 2. This is like bounced between 1.5 and 2.5 like throughout these past couple of days. So I guess it's settling into 2 for now. Any strong take here? I have a small play on one side, but not really. What do you think?
Nothing. Well, actually, yeah. So I did go under 51.5 here in this game to bet it when it was out. It's dropped to 49. That's the only thing that I looked at. This was bet before the Dolphins game against the Jaguars, in which I anticipated just initial struggle and thought that could carry over a little bit. And I'm just not sold on what Buffalo is quite yet. And I think traveling to Miami is going to be tough. I think, if anything, there might be some value in taking the Bills, knowing that this is a later game and the heat probably won't be an impact right at night. Mm-hmm. So there's probably some value in just taking the Bills outright here, but I went under 51.5.
Okay, yeah, I think under is probably the way to go. I like the Dolphins a little bit just because the Bills seem to have a lot of liabilities on defense. You know, Matt Milano's out. They're starting, as John told us last week, Damar Hamlin is starting there, which is a big problem. Safety is just a big issue.
Right.
And so I feel like Mike McDaniel is just a brilliant offense coach, can find these liabilities and exploit them with his great offensive schools. Miami barely beat Jacksonville last week, but I don't think they were fully focused because they had this game on the horizon. So, that's one reason I like Miami. The second reason is that Josh Allen hurt his wrist at the end of the game last week. And so just don't really know how effective he's going to be in this game. Now, it might not affect them at all. But if he's like hindered by it at all, like it really could turn the tide here. And this is a close battle. These teams are pretty even, I think. So these two factors, plus double revenge from last year too. These 3 things are why I'm backing Miami, but it's not nearly strong enough for me to put it on the card to submit it early.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I mean. No side here. So nothing along those lines.
Yeah, Johnson. Yeah, no Taron Johnson's death sentence for that defense. Yeah, that's being down a corner against those receivers is pretty rough. Patrick says a bit 8 of my 10 $25 free bets from DraftKings lost them all in small parlays. Taught me not to bet on sports. Just putting my money on my Roth and individual accounts. Yeah, just the best way is to just sell options contracts on the market. Because you just can't really lose money there. So what I've done with the free bets is I put it on like Super Bowl futures. I think that's like the best way. And then John says Rams were brutal beaten overtime. Yeah, condolences if you had the Rams. That was another one. I actually had the Lions for a couple units, so I was able to benefit from that. But like whatever I had with the Puka Nacua parlay, like was kind of a wash. So I feel like it just kind of negated that. So. With that being said, hammering down to Jones on their passing yards next week. Yeah, it's probably the way to go. Although it is a good matchup for him at least. All right, let's get to the Sunday games. And as you see here, we can you get a lot of promos here from DraftKings and BetMGM through OddsShopper. So definitely check those out. Raiders at the Ravens. This line's 9.5. I saw 10 at Bookmaker. I like one side pretty convincingly here. I'm kind of wondering if you're on the same side or if you like anything in this game.
Yeah, this is another one that I took a shot at here. And just wanted to make sure that, I got under 43 in this game. Not a side for me, not something that I necessarily want to put on a card. At 9.5, I was jumping to, although I would definitely lean if you wanted to look Baltimore in a bounce back. I'm just not so sure, man, what this offensive line, and we talked about that at length. That's why I faded Baltimore, was on Lamar's rushing attempts. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be correctable after 1 week, right? Certain things may bounce back, regress to the mean, but I don't think this offensive line is just going to figure itself out, especially with a coach who's proven that he can. So I think now you've got some struggles on that offense. You may see some chunks, but I don't know if they're just going to turn around and say, all right, give Derrick Henry the ball 45 times, let Lamar Jackson throw 10 or 12 times, and I think there's still going to be some struggles to even get the run game going. I don't think they're going to score a ton. Raiders, tough to count on them too, especially with that defense for Baltimore. So I went under 40. What I'd say, I'm sorry, I just have it in front of me here. Did I not have that one there? All right, this is great. 43 is what I got at 9 a.m. yesterday, but
nice.
not on a card for me quite yet.
Okay. Yeah, I like the Raiders quite a bit here. You mentioned reasons to be pessimistic about the Ravens, like their offensive line. They had 3 new offensive linemen, and you kind of wondered how they would play. Like maybe they would be a surprise. Like the front office has had success in the past drafting players, but they were all pretty bad in the opener. They couldn't protect Lamar Jackson, and I think it was Chris Collins who kept like hammering home the depth of target number that was so low for Jackson. It's because he didn't have any pass protection. Like they had Mark Andrews blocking a lot. So for an offense that's going to be this limited, I think is pretty problematic against a Raider defense that's so great at rushing the passer. They're going to get a lot of pressure on Jackson, like even more so than Kansas City did. So I think Jackson's going to be running for his life a lot here. And, asking a team like that to cover such a big spread, the high spread on the board this week is just, I think, too much to ask. And then on the other side of the ball, Baltimore's defense was great recently, but I don't think it's as great anymore. They had problems in the secondary. They had trouble covering Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice last week, and now the Raiders have Devontae Adams, who's better than anyone. So that they faced last week. So, and also Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers had a good game last week. So the Raiders have 3 good weapons for the Ravens to cover, and I don't think they can cover them. So I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's probably going to be like a field goal game or something like that, maybe 6 points. I made this line personally, Baltimore -6. The advanced spread was 7.5, so this has jumped up 2 or 2.5 points. Just I think way too much. I like the Raiders to keep this game close quite a bit.
Yeah, I think for me it was, looking at this, I think for me it was I'm on the same page as you, but instead of trusting the Raiders, I felt like it was better for me to play the under and just fade both offenses. But I'm with you. Like, I think, I didn't look at the sides much. Let's put that there because this is going to be on your card.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. Like, barring injury, yeah, of course.
Well, let's put it there. Like we have our tier here, right? So we're going to build 1 through 5. I think just put it there as one of the bottom slots for now because I'm not crazy about it, but I'm also not full of conviction with, I think, 5 full plays, and that could sneak in, especially because I think now that I look at it a little bit more after hearing what you said, it correlates. I just played it a different way with the total. That's all. Like, I can't see this being a shootout. personally,
Yeah.
but I could see the Raiders, as you mentioned, at least taking advantage of a couple of secondary issues and putting up some points enough to stay in a football game.
Yeah, no. I like the under a lot. I bet the under in the Raiders game last week, and I think that betting the under for them is the way to go for the most part, because they have potentially a top 5 defense, and their offense has some, like they have some great playmakers, but I don't trust their protections. I don't trust Minshew, and he was another quarterback who kind of threw that game away. Like he and Zamir White had turnovers, and they were up for most of that game. They kind of blew it. So, which was unfortunate. That was another big unit play that I lost. I wouldn't say it's a bad beat. It was just a frustrating beat, I guess.
Right.
Alex says a 10 lets you push on field goal and touchdown difference. 10 feels like too much. Yeah, I think way too much for sure, especially with those receivers who can get you a backdoor cover. Chris says, what do you think about John Gruden's new YouTube channel? I did not know about this.
I haven't seen this.
I haven't seen it either, so I'll take a look and let you know. Honeymoon phase is over for Antonio Pierce. He had that really questionable. He didn't go for it on 4th down on that. He was like over midfield in the 4th quarter, down, I want to say 6 or something, or I think it was 16-10, and he didn't go for it. It was like the Charger 47-yard line, I think, and he didn't go for it. Whereas like he went for it earlier in the game in a worse position. I was like, I didn't really understand that at all.
Yeah, that was one of the few that I did get. Was just and again, it was just fading the difference in coaching right there. Just realizing that at some point something is going to happen versus Harbaugh and Roman. But yeah, you're right. That was a tough one.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next game is Chargers Panthers. So we teased this a little bit. The Chargers are they're favored by 6.5. The event spread on this game, by the way, was 3.5. So quite the difference there. It's moved 3 points to the key number of 6, which has become so prominent because of the rule changes and whatnot. So, I mean, I like I said, I teased this already. I have a multi-unit play on the Panthers, so I'd love for you to talk me out of this. But I think, I love week 2 because it's all about fading the overreactions, and I think that there is no bigger overreaction than 47-10 personally. But I'll get into it. John says, "Don't do it." I'll convince you, but maybe Eytan, you could convince me not to do it. So, what do you think about this game?
Look, you've got multi-units on this play. So what am I convincing you at this point?
Not to that.
Buyer's remorse, right? It's like you're already locked. This isn't like you could cash out right now for that unit, come back and put it somewhere else. You're heavily invested in this play. There you go. Cassandra clearly had the Raiders. It sucks. Sorry.
Yeah.
Last week we talked about it. So the Chargers was a play for me. Look, I think this week, again, I don't hold anything against anybody because I was one of them who took Carolina last week with that result. I do agree that there should be some significant regression here to the mean. But what exactly has Bryce Young given you as a track record to go back to? Like, what exactly is the track record for Young is mean to go back to is my point, right? Like, This isn't even somebody who's volatile and has these highs and then lows. He's just like barely staying alive or completely submerged underwater. This was a stay away for me because I love the Chargers. And even at 6.5, I know that I'm not getting the best break and would like that to be a little bit lower and was hoping that maybe Carolina could dip that to 6. I doubt it would go through 6, but I stayed away because I know you're going to give me a couple of arguments here about how they could stay in this game defensively, running the football, basically doing everything but asking Bryce Young to win a game. And they have the talent to do that, but I'm in love with this Chargers coaching staff. So I kind of abstain from this game from any card.
Okay. It is a tough pill to swallow with Bryce Young. And
that's an easy way to put it, I think.
Yeah, it is. There was a comment here. Chris says, this feels like Bryce Young is holding Walt down, grabbing his wrist and saying, why are you hitting yourself? Yeah, for sure. So first of all, I think this line's outrageous. 6.5, like I said, it went from 3.5 to 6.5. Yep. I think that's just way too much of an overreaction for what we saw for week 1, just from one game. I don't understand like why the Panthers were so bad last week. And and like, yeah, you could say they suck, but they were closer to the Saints in 2 games last year. And they didn't get blown out like this that much last year. They had some blowouts like against Dallas and whatnot, but they had a lot of close games last year as well. But they added so much this offseason. They added two good guards. They paid a lot of money to Robert Nunt, Damian Lewis. I actually I went back to watch the game and like really focus on them and the rest of the offensive line to be like, all right, did these guys just suck in week 1? And they didn't. Like they blocked pretty well. Like the pocket was clean for the most part. Like Bryce Young got sacked a few times on blitzes, but for the most part, they held up their protection. And then they traded for Deontay Johnson. They got Xavier Legette. Like Deontay Johnson was getting open sometimes in that game. They hired Dave Canales, who's had to be an upgrade over what they had, even not even as a head coach, but as an offensive quarterback whisperer for Bryce Young. Just to get him to play better. And so like they should have been better. And yeah, like I know they lost Brian Burns. And so, yeah, you can point to the defense just sucking, but at the same time, like their offense should have been a lot better. And it wasn't. It was even worse than it was in year 1. And so my question is like, did Bryce Young actually just get worse despite the improvement around him? Like they added a lot. Like you should have been elevated. And like, I didn't even think he could be like good. I'm just saying like, can Bryce Young be like a 4.5 out of 10? Like I think that's like all you need here for him to cover this outrageous spread, which is so high. Like the Chargers don't have. I know you like the coaching staff, but I don't think they have much going for them outside of the edge rushers. Like Justin Herbert's playing on.
Yeah, I like the offensive side of the coaching staff. Let me be frank here and clear. Okay.
So Justin Herbert is playing on a plantar fascia. The running backs, J.K. Dobbins. He had some good runs for sure in the fourth quarter, but for the most part, he wasn't doing much in week 1. He was kind of bottled up a lot. The Raiders are going against the run anyway. The receivers weren't doing anything. Quentin Johnson was dropping passes. Like Ladd McConkey's their top receiver. Like he has no experience. And then defensively, they're weak against the run. What'd you say?
Scored a touchdown week 1.
He did, and then in Garza, yeah. And then their secondary has holes. They can't stop the run. Like I said, I love their edge rushers, but like outside of the coaching, the edge rushers, like I feel like this Charger team, I don't think is very good. So like they're 6.5 point favorites on the road, which is crazy. And then kind of you have to look back to last year to see how the Panthers did at home. Maybe it's like maybe Bryce Young's just awful on the road because at home last year, he beat Atlanta. He beat Houston, which, obviously they went to the second round of the playoffs. They almost beat the Packers when the Packers were hot late in the year. They almost beat Tampa. They had 2 touchdowns called back. Otherwise, they would have won. They had one other close game. I can't remember, but at home. They were blown out at home twice last year, once to Dallas and I think once to Minnesota. But that game was close, just got out of hand in the fourth quarter. So for the most part, they've played really well at home last year. So I feel like with some experience now, like Canales is going to be able to maybe correct Bryce Young's issues. Like I said, I mean, he revived Geno Smith's career. He revived Baker Mayfield's career. Bryce Young looks completely lost right now, and he looks like he could be out of the NFL in a year or two. But I think that Canales deserves another shot. I think this team with all the upgrades it made deserves another shot. And with like this enhanced spread that went from 3.5 to 6.5, I just think that there's way too much value with the Panthers not to just completely give up on them after one game, because I really thought this team was not going to be good, but at least like maybe mediocre this year. And I don't know, just one game. I'm not going to be swayed by one result. So I'm gonna bite the bullet, do it one more time, and if they get blown out again, then no more. But this is I'm giving them one more chance.
Yeah, you're gonna do that on your own, I think, my friend. Again, I'm not on the other side. Let that be clear. But I just can't do it. Bryce Young's gonna have to prove me wrong, and I'm happy to jump on that after and say I was wrong, and he just ripped off 6 straight covers. But God bless, my friend. God bless, Godspeed, all that.
When I says Walter hate for the Chargers, that they're overrated his mind, track record, and reasoning for the Panthers. I don't see, like I said, I don't see what the Chargers have going for them
Yeah.
outside of the edge rushers. And yeah, the coaching staff's better for sure, but like they have a lot of negativity on the team. No Derek Brown. That is rough, but Derek Brown did not play well in the opener. So, and by the way, Brian Burns had a rough game against the Giants in his first game. So I don't know, like, were they really missing much? But their defense does suck. Watch Panthers destroy everyone's survivor. That is my trap game. I submit a trap game each week. That's Chargers is my trap game. The Patriots beating the Bengals already count. So so I mean, I think it happened. John says I bet the Panthers if they started Dalton. I'd be more confident if they started Dalton for sure.
100%. Same line. Give me Dalton. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's jump. I feel like we spent enough time on Panthers Chargers. All right, Saints Cowboys. This line's 6.5. So there's the storm Francine might crash into New Orleans, and that the coaching staff was already talking about it. So that could play a factor here. There are some sixes on the board too. I don't have a play on either side. I think this line is priced appropriately. Do you have a big opinion on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go at some point. I think I'm going to look for, if it doesn't keep going up, a play on the Dallas team total. I think you're going to get some points in this game, to be honest. I went over 45.5, and I'm looking at putting, if I can get Dallas at 6, I'm looking at putting them on there. And it's not even so much as just fading New Orleans. I know that there was concern as far as, injury coming into this thing on offense for Dallas, but I think ultimately you're going to see an offense that just took advantage of a pretty good defense and held up pretty strong, and now returns home. Their opener, I know you mentioned as far as the weather is concerned here, but I don't think that New Orleans offense, defense, is going to be able to slow down what we've seen. The concern over the run game clearly wasn't an issue for Dallas week 1. And while people are expecting, I think, some sort of regression to the mean for Cleveland, I don't think Dallas's offense is necessarily a regression candidate for me against New Orleans in this game specific. So I like the total going over 45.5. I like the team total for Dallas going over 26, if you can still get that. And I think that correlates into them covering a 6-point game in this. Now, look, you can make an argument that all of that could lead to New Orleans getting in this game and some sort of backdoor cover with 6 being that key number. But I'm confident that I can get this upwards to a 7 to 8-point cover for Dallas.
Yeah, I think we're on the same side here. Like I said, I'm not going to bet this game. I think it's priced correctly. And these are two teams I wanted to fade anyway. I feel like both of their wins in week 1 were kind of fraudulent. I don't believe the Saints at all. No. They crushed the Panthers, but I don't know. I think that's just a weird game. I'm not going to factor too much into. And then Dallas is like I planned to bet on the Browns against the Cowboys, but then Jedrick Wills got ruled out, and then Jack Conklin was questionable, and then before the game he got ruled out. So I said that I wasn't going to bet the game. Which was only like half correct. I should just went on Dallas, but they just couldn't protect against Michael Parsons, and he had a field day against Deshaun Watson. And I think he has the same sort of matchup here. Like the Saints can't block at all. So I really worry about Derek Carr's pass protection in this game. So it feels like the Cowboys should be able to get out to a big lead here. I just worry about, a potential backdoor cover on, not getting, if this game lands on 6, which is the third most likely result, like you lose here with Dallas. So I have some concern about that. And I wouldn't be as concerned if I thought Dallas were a better team, but I just don't think Dallas is that good either. So slight lean to Dallas, I guess. If you really want them on the card, you could maybe sell me on it, but I'm not going to bet this one.
Okay. Yeah. Let's put that there at the bottom alongside that Raiders play, right?
Okay. Yeah. So we have 2 maybes down so far. John says though, Dallas is lock of the week. I'm taking Dallas and Survivor. Okay.
I'm confident with you, John, on that too.
Okay. Yes. Chargers.
Not lock of the week for me, but I'm with you.
Yeah. Cal says Carr is a much different quarterback when pressure comes. He'll turn into a pumpkin. Yeah, for sure. T Vasquez 6-10 is pathetic. Walt, that went 13-3. Well, it's congrats on
your game up, Walt. What are you doing?
Congrats on your 13-3 week. I'd prefer to look at unit count more than these games that, like, there were 3 games, I think, or 4 games last week that were decided by half a point on the line. Like Dolphins, Jaguars, for example. Like, all these games are like 50-50 games. Like, you just like flip a coin really for them. I think it's more important to talk about unit count. I don't care about the no unit games for the most part. Cowboys play the Giants twice. Save them for that. Yeah. Use Dallas against the Giants for sure in Survivor. All right. Anyway, next game, Buccaneers at the Lions. So there's some injury news here. The Buccaneers won't be without Antoine Winfield. They had some defensive backs banged up in the first game. This line was 6 and went up to 7. This is a revenge game from the playoffs. So what are you thinking here?
This is not on my card, but I do really like the over in this game. 51.5 is what I got it. I think, as you mentioned, injuries here. Anybody that's down on the defensive side can only help. And I think that you've seen this, again, whatever the regression candidate looks like for Baker Mayfield and this Bucs offense, they're able to move the football. They've got talent for him to throw to when this team is healthy, and that's been what's plaguing them. And then on the other side, we just know how aggressive Detroit can be. You mentioned as far as revenge in the air. I don't think that slows anything down here by any means. I think Detroit is at its best when they're moving. So the over jumped out at me at 7. Seemed like, and the reason is another thing too, is it seemed like we were going to get 7 on the card. Didn't look like we were going to get any break there. So I just stayed away from the side. It's not on my card, but I definitely like the over.
Yeah, I like the over too. I think my projected score is like 34-26. And the playoff result was 31-23. So I think it'll be close to the line. The problem here with taking Detroit is that Tampa, it just seems like a great backdoor cover team. Because
really does.
They have Mike Evans. Yeah, they have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They'll be able to throw a lot in the fourth quarter, if they get ahead. And I kind of worry about Detroit's like mental status in this game. Like, first of all, this is the revenge game, obviously. But second, they're coming off that emotional overtime game against their former quarterback. And, they didn't have a full night to rest. It was just a night game. So it's like slightly shorter rest here. So I just don't know if they're going to be 100% focused for a team they just beat in the playoffs, whereas like this is Tampa's big game heading into the season. So I think I do like the Lions to cover. If I had to pick this game, like an office pool, Detroit would be my side. But luckily, we don't have to bet every game, so I'm just not going to bet this one. I think the line's pretty accurate at Detroit -7.
I do. I agree with you there.
Yeah. Although the injuries, though, no Winfield is big. Yeah, that's something that pushed me toward Detroit. I think if Winfield were playing, I think I'd be on Tampa +7 for no units as well. Tampa Bay passing game is no joke. With Evans is he's 31, but he's still amazing. Yeah.
He's up there too with career touchdowns. It's amazing.
Yeah. Says, give me the Bucs here. Lions are overrated. Well, of course, the Viking fan says that. I'm taking the over on Lions players, going low on Tampa players to injure them. But you can find that on a sportsbook. Just let me know. DJ Reader didn't even play in week 1, so him being back would be nice. Tampa Bay beat on Washington secondary is brutal. Let's not overreact. Yeah, that's true. But Detroit's secondary did not look too good against Tyler Johnson and Demarcus Robinson. So let's worry about that a little bit too. Like Tyron Arnold got flagged a couple of times. So let's go. Cassandra says, I didn't watch the debate, but I received a bunch of alerts that Harris moved to a betting favorite now. Was it that bad? I thought it was just kind of an even debate. I thought the commenters, they fact checked Trump a lot, but not Kamala. So I didn't see who's favorite now, but I will look into it. Texans played Titans twice. Titans are no joke. Titans are no joke. So All right. Anyway, let's see if we like this one more. Colts at the Packers. Colts are favored by 3. The advanced spread on this game was Packers -4.5. As obviously with Jordan Love. Now Love is out. It's gonna be Malik Willis. I saw this at 3.5. pop up at some point, but it just got shot down to 3. Looks like sharp money came in on Green Bay plus 3.5. So this is one of my top 2 plays of the week. So kind of curious where you stand on this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, 3.5 for me is just an automatic play on the Packers. Mm-hmm. I understand that Jordan Love is a good quarterback, and we'll see just how good in the ceiling can be overall. And people are going to be down big time on Willis because of what happened, right, in that game in Brazil and what have you. But this is more than a full week of preparation. This is a coach who has put together game plans. And by the way, the Colts have to travel following a really tough game against Houston, in which they were in and they were fighting by all means. I think the Packers, this is not a significant, as we've seen with the line for me. It's the gap. It's hard for people to comprehend this because they hear the names and they're like, well, the talent is definitely different. But the gap between Jordan Love and Malik Willis is not as wide as the move in the spread. And for me at 3.5, it's just, I'll play it. Pushes in play at 3, so I don't lose everything, and I would still lean towards Green Bay. And this was one that I was going to bring up and say at least give me the 3.5 for the card.
Yeah, glad you like Green Bay here. I love Green Bay. So let me throw some numbers at you. Backup quarterbacks in the past 3 years, and there's a decent amount of data here. There are about 39 or 37 games here. So backup quarterbacks against teams that aren't in the top 12 defensively, 28-17 against the spread. So don't be afraid to bet on these backup quarterbacks unless they're playing a top 12 defense. And I'll throw this to you. Do you think the Colts have a top 12 defense? Because I don't. I like some pieces.
No, I don't.
Yeah. I think they have some good things going for them on defense. Like they're not a bottom defense, but they are, I think, in the middle of the pack. So
one more time. What was that number on backup quarterbacks?
Best 3 years. So against non-top 12 defenses, 28-17 against the spread. However,
okay.
Yeah. However, if backup quarterbacks against top 12 defenses are 11-20 against the spread. So big dichotomy there. You know, if you have a backup quarterback, it makes sense that they would struggle against top defenses. And that's even with a caveat. Like one of the wins against top defenses was last year where Gardner Minshew beat the Ravens, but the Ravens were missing like half their defense. So like you kind of have to, just factor that in as well. If you have a top defense, they're missing players. So anyway, and you might be wondering like, oh, maybe Malik Willis is that bad. Well, Malik Willis started a couple games, that you might have remembered. In week 8 of 2022, he started against the Texans, and he won as a 2-point road favorite. The next week, he played against the Chiefs in week 9. It was a Sunday Night Football game. He's a 12.5-point underdog. And I'm sure you remember that one. That was the game Tennessee almost won. The Chiefs came back and nearly prevailed. The Chiefs prevailed at the end, but the Titans almost pulled a huge upset. So Malik Willis, under a coaching staff that I like, Mike Vrabel, is a great defensive-minded coach. But he didn't have right. He didn't have the sort of offensive-minded coach just aiding him like LaFleur will with Willis. So I think you're going to see Willis, I think, not be that bad. Like it's that 4.5 thing, like I talked about Bryce Young. Like all he needs to be is like a 4.5 out of 10. I think he can do that with the supporting cast. The Packers block well. They have good receivers who are developing. Jaden Reed had a monster game. Christian Watson can always just go for long distance anytime. He has Josh Jacobs to lean on in the backfield. There's a lot around him. This is not like a Tennessee team where their top receivers trail on Burks. They have a lot of weapons on offense. And I agree with what you said. Like this line moved from 4.5 to 3. Like it's a 7.5-point line move.
It's insane. People overreact so much to quarterback movement, and books know they can take full advantage of that because I guarantee you that whoever's setting the odds, it's probably a 0.5 point to maybe, and probably not even a full point difference, the two of these guys. Yet the public looks at this and says, oh, my God, backup quarterback Malik Willis stinks. I saw him in Tennessee. And then the recent memory of what happened. And they buy into this and they bite. And then they lay 3.5 on the road No.
Yeah, this is not like they're playing the Chiefs or anything, or like one of the top teams in the NFL. They're playing against a Colts team I like, but let's face it here, like they're just not a great team at all. And like there's no player in the NFL worth 7.5 points. Like maybe Mahomes, but that's it. Like Jordan Love is not worth 7.5 points to Malik Willis. It's just not.
Put it on the card.
Yeah, I love this as well. It's a 5-unit play for me. This is nice. This is great. I was hoping you would like this.
3.5 in PA at BetMGM, by the way. So
you
that's
did?
still out there. Yep.
Well, I also live in PA, so I'll have to. I think I'll have to lock that in 3.5. It's very important to get 3 for those of you who are new to this. Like 3 is the most likely result of any football game. So if you can get a 3 is it one? You said minus 110. Big or what
15 minus 115.
Yeah, minus 115 is fine. I think the math is like up to minus 127. It's like worth paying for a 3.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, so glad we're on the same page there. Pauline says that game was all Derrick Henry. Well, I mean, Josh Jacobs could definitely do some damage. Did you see what Joe Mixon did to the Colts run defense? He had 159 rushing yards. Like I think
time. Yep, both
I think
of these
Josh.
teams.
Yeah, I think Josh Jacobs could do some damage. The John says AR-15 goes off on Green Bay. I'll take Indy. Well, I do think Richardson will have a good game. I just don't think they'll cover or necessarily win. And I would take this on the money line too. And then Taylor first touchdown. I think that makes sense. Let's see here. Slew says Malik Willis has never thrown a touchdown pass in the NFL. Is that correct? I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. With that says Walt dropped the Packers 16 spots in power rankings. Trust them, take Indy. But that was just based on power ratings. Like I just trying to calculate what the lines would be. So week 2 is the biggest overreaction for sure. I love week 2.
He is not, by the way.
He is not. Okay. Has he ran in for a touchdown? I don't know if you have access to that.
I do. He's rushed for 1 touchdown. 2022.
There we go. Hey, that's all I need. All right. Josh Jacobs over rushing attempts is a good bet. Yeah, I probably think so. All right. Next game we have Browns at the Jaguars. So this line is 3. The advanced line was 2. So this line moved up 1 point because the Browns got throttled by the Cowboys. As you can see here, the matchup I put TBA just because we don't know the Browns' offensive line situation. So that's something I'm looking forward to seeing. Jedrick Wills, Jack Conklin are so important to this team. Obviously against Micah Parsons, but the Jaguars can rush too with Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen or Josh Hines Allen, whatever he's calling himself now. So, so I currently don't have a bet on this game because I'm waiting on the status of those guys. If one plays, I think I would like the Browns. If both play, I would love the Browns. So what do you think here?
I don't know, man. This whole thing that came down with Watson, like I don't even know how much validity there is around to it, right? I'm not trying to play YouTube lawyer by any means, but it just seems like he is a guy that he's like the more talented version. The Cleveland Deshaun Watson is the more talented version of Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And I think that there is this expectation. And I fell for it. I've been there, right? That he is just going to snap and turn this thing around exponentially. I think there's a lot, both on the field and off the field, for Deshaun Watson that I just don't want a part of. I saw that line at 3. I didn't really mess around with it specifically. I'm interested if you do have, right? I know you mentioned as far as injuries are concerned, but yeah, man, like we saw this with Brady going through the divorce. We saw this with players who are dealing with things off. Not everybody can compartmentalize. And Deshaun Watson is not somebody who is already playing at this high level, right? So I'm not going to go full like Kobe in Colorado. I'm going to show you like Deshaun Watson's already playing like ass. So all of this shit on top of him was enough for me, Walt, to just look and say, all right, he's now the most important player on the field for Cleveland, at least to try to get this offense going on the road. Jags, it was a tough one. I understand that total is pretty fair for me. I did not have a play here, but it was more just because I didn't want anything to do with Deshaun Watson more than anything else. Like, I love Jim Schwartz. I love this defense. I think there's regression for a positive regression for this defense. Absolutely. They travel well. Clearly, you can look at talent around Watson, but my God, man, that guy is somebody that I just don't want to trust right now.
If well, it's kind of akin to. It's funny you mentioned Bryce Young. Is if like with the Panthers, if Andy Dalton were starting, if Jameis Winston were starting this game, would you like the Browns a lot more?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I take the Browns on the money line if Jameis Winston was starting, because I think their defense is enough of a cushion to overcome a mistake or two, knowing that there's risk reward with what he can bring. This is a seasoned backup quarterback who has started in the NFL. And look, Kevin Stefanski is not going to ask Jameis Winston to be pre-LASIK Jameis, which is just YOLO and spread the ball, right? Like as far and wide as you possibly can and like throw into 5 guys. So right, like give me a week with Jameis Winston on the road with that defense bouncing back. 100% I'm with you, 100%. And I'm taking them on the money line.
Yeah, if Winston were starting and they had their 2 tackles back, the Browns would be one of the top plays of the week.
Contingent on that for sure.
Yeah. Jags defense is going to get to Watson, and they don't have Chubb. Yeah,
they don't have Chubb.
That's one of the many problems they have. The Jaguars win by 3, so yeah, I think that's probably the most likely result. Browns versus Jaguars, both disasters for decades. Flip a coin, and then don't bet either.
Shame, man. I love Doug Peterson too, and it's just a shame. They have nothing.
Yeah,
it's just that they can count on.
Yeah, can you believe the Jaguars went to the AFC Championship with Blake Bortles though? That 1 year, Blake Bortles was in the AFC Championship. It's kind of insane. Anyway, all right. Next
coach, do you remember?
It was he's the big guy. Not that big, but I can't remember his name. He's sabotaged the prior regime. I can't remember his name.
He sabotaged the Coughlin regime, right?
Yes.
Doug Marrone.
Doug Marrone. He sabotaged the prior regime to get into power. Yeah. There you go, Doug Marrone. Thank you, John. All right. So next game, Niners at the Vikings. We'll talk about overreactions in week 2. Both teams coming up blowout wins, but the public just saw the Niners doing it on national TV. So this line was the advanced spread was 6.5, and then after the Vikings blew out the Giants, it went to 5.5. And then it went to 6. So I think this game is pretty interesting. I have a medium-sized bet on this game. So I could be convinced to put this on the card for sure. So what do you think about it?
I'm under in this game, 45.5. I looked at that total. San Fran coming off that game on a Monday night. It's a short one on the road now in Minnesota. Up in the air, we know, with McCaffrey, right? Like, I don't think that was to keep him out just so that they can be healthy for Sunday at 1:00 against the Vikings. Like that's significant. Those are nagging injuries that he's going to have there. And look, whatever you saw, whatever went down with the nonsense of the press conference and then the post game, like, I get it. San Fran's going to be able to run the ball without McCaffrey. I don't think that, oh my God, their season's over by any means. I don't really know what to make of Minnesota. We'll talk about the Giants coming up. I don't trust Minnesota to hang in a football game. And this is probably one of those grind out games in which I could see San Fran's offense like putting up 17 points or something along those lines. You're on the road. It's after a primetime game. There's some letdown opportunity here for them. And everybody expects them to put up 40 points every week. And I just don't think that's the case every week. So this could be a letdown opportunity here. But if I had to lean one way, it would be for the Niners for sure. Just because the Vikings had nothing that I think could be a tangible takeaway from anything you could look at as a litmus test of who they are. Like, they beat up on a dog shit football team with a coach who has no business running that.
That is definitely true. I do worry.
We know.
I do worry about the Niners. Like how they project in this game, just emotionally with that big win against the Jets on Monday Night Football. Then on a short week, they have to travel across the country. It's like play a team that they don't really have on the radar. And I know they played them last year, and the Vikings beat them on Monday Night Football. That was with Kirk Cousins, but I like some of the stuff Vikings have. I know, like you said, it's not much of a litmus test against the Giants, but I do know that they do have a good offensive line. They do have Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones. They have some good playmakers. I like Kevin O'Connell as a coach. He's another one of these offensive-minded gurus who can coach up the quarterback. And Sam Darnold did play well. I just don't know if that's going to continue. But the Vikings did add some good pieces through the defense this offseason, whereas the Niners lost some players. Like they lost Eric Armstead. Dre Greenlaw's out. Talanoa Hufanga he missed last week's game. And it didn't matter against the Jets because the Jets couldn't stop the run at all. But I feel like the Vikings could be better against the run than the Jets were. And if they could at least handle Jordan Mason a little bit, Schefter said that he thinks Mason's going to start, I think. But anyway, so I think that they can slow down Mason just a little bit and just hang around. And if anything, they have some offensive playmakers who could potentially get in for backdoor cover just against a team that's just not going to be that interested in them. Like the 49ers aren't going to be humming at 100% all season. This is a long NFL season, 17 games. This is not a game that's really on the radar, I think, especially after winning against the Jets. So I think that I'm more inclined to back the Vikings. I like them for a couple units, just based on the emotional edge that they have, and plus just I think they're underrated at the moment. So I like Minnesota a little bit. Card?
Minnesota?
Probably won't be unless
just checking, just clarifying.
Yeah, if some injuries could push me over the hump though. If the Niners are down a couple of starters, I'm close enough where Minnesota might make the card, but at the moment, no. Okay. Matthias says now Giants aren't that bad. They're good enough to take them as a teaser in week 1. Well, luckily I forgot to bet the teaser. That my son got the stomach flu on Saturday, and I didn't get the teasers in. I didn't get the money line plays in. So it was brutal. I was up till 7 a.m. with him.
That's the worst.
Yeah. So Jets this season, just like Bears this season, the two most overrated teams.
I agree, John.
Yeah.
All right. Chicago.
Yeah. All right. So Seahawks at the Patriots. The event spread was it's funny. It opened at 3, and then it got bet up so quickly to 3.5. Yeah. I got I almost got FOMO, and I was like, let me just bet the Seahawks here. And then luckily I didn't because it's down to 3. So this is not a game I'm thinking about betting, but maybe you can convince me on one side. What do you think about this one?
It's not a contest play for me. I did put Seattle on the money line in a parlay with the Eagles, and that got me to just over even money at plus 108 that I found. I do think Seattle guts this game out, but it's tighter. And look, I was over on the Discord here for Odd Shopper. A lot of people ridiculed me for going over 4.5 for New England, which I still think is possible by all means. But the big thing here for me is just, what you saw from New England is not sustainable. Cincinnati embarrassed themselves. This was not New England winning chess matches. This was Cincinnati turning the football over in the red zone, the goal line. This was horrific. The block punt, right? That shit is not sustainable. So, yeah, and look, that's fine as far as and what John said as well with Burrow's wrist, right? So I don't take anything away from New England's win. Oh my God, this is a team that everybody undervalued. I think Cincinnati just vomited all over themselves, and that was the result of that game. So I like Seattle to win this, but it's not a contest play for me. It's a money line parlay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm on Seattle with you, but here, I'm not going to bet this one. I just don't know how good Seattle is going to be. I'm pretty confident they're better than the Patriots. I just what John said was accurate. Burrow is not 100%. Plus, Cincinnati's run defense just looks so terrible without DJ Reader. They couldn't get off the field against Stevenson. And so it feels like it just feels like Seattle is going to be the better team here. I really have questions about New England's offensive line. I think Seattle should be able to pressure Brissett a lot, and I think Seattle's going to play the run better than Cincinnati did last week. So it's not like they're going to control the clock with Stevenson again and just keep Seattle off the field. And plus, the Patriots still don't have Matthew Judon. He's gone. Christian Barmore's gone, and they had a great game out of Keon White, who had 3 sacks. But I just don't know how sustainable that is.
That win is not sustainable,
right? So
the way in which they won is not sustainable. Let me say that.
Right. So if the movement on this game last week before the week 1 game is correct, that like the Seahawks -3 is the right side because it went to 3.5. Then I have some interest in Seattle -3, for office pool purposes. But there's just too many other games I like on the card to like really push this one.
Yep.
Okay.
Real quick. I'm sorry. After the comments. Sorry.
Oh, it's just one. Trent says, I agree. John, Seahawks defense so good. Don't see how Brissett company can move the ball at all. Yeah. All right. So what are you going to say?
Where are we as far as our car? We've got 3, right, so far?
Yeah. So we have Green Bay as a certainty, then Raiders and Cowboys as maybes.
Okay.
All right. Next one. I believe I like this one a lot. Yes. Jets at the Titans. So this line was 4 at one point. I think it went down to 3.5. It went down to 3.5. So yeah, the Packers are one of my top 2 plays of the week. This is the other one. So I wonder if we're on the same side. What do you think?
Yeah, I've got 2 plays in this game. I am under 42, and I got 4 for the Titans in this. And I'm a massive hypocrite because I'm staying away from Deshaun Watson and Bryce Young for the same reason that I'm now going with Will Levis. But here's the thing, too. There's just no way after what Tennessee saw that they're going to ask Will Levis to do anything more than they did initially and probably rein it back in even more so. So I think that I'm not even as concerned with that as I am looking at the Jets. There's something about playing the Niners, especially on a short week. That team beats the shit out of you. And the Jets are physical and but their run defense got gashed. And that's the thing where it wasn't just Christian McCaffrey. You saw how Kyle Shanahan, like on offense, they're still more physical than the Jets were on defense. And that right away, this is the first game of the year. Short week, you have to travel to a team who is physical, just like San Fran, who wants to run. They have no choice. They have to run. Look at the quarterback play. And I think you're seeing how Tennessee really dominated Chicago last week outside of one guy who just insisted that his team had to lose a football game, Walt, right? Like that was it. You take away one guy who played so fucking bad, and now you move him into a spot where it's like, all right, you're under wraps. This is a really tough spot for New York and Aaron Rodgers. I don't like him at all. I like the Titans at +4. And like I said, I went under that total. I think it was 42 in which I got it. Yeah, 42 in which we got it yesterday. Oh, no, this was earlier today. So already on the move.
Nice. Glad to hear you're on Tennessee. I love Tennessee as well. You mentioned like going back and looking back at how the Jets might be tired because they just played San Francisco, and also in the short week, and also with the travel going from the West Coast back to the East Coast to Tennessee. It's a tough spot for them just travel wise, but also look ahead. In 4 days, they have to play against the Patriots on Thursday night. It's a divisional team on short rest. Like I just wonder how focused they're going to be against the Titans here when they had a big game to prepare last week and also next week. So it feels like this is a sandwich game, even though they lost it. And it just feels like they match up so poorly against the Titans because the Titans want to run the ball. They like Tony Pollard had a great game on the ground week 1. Just JC Latham, by the way, great run blocking in his debut. Just the big addition there for the offensive line. So the Jets are horrible against the run. They signed Lecky Fotu in the offseason to help them in run defense, but he's out. He's out. He's on IR, so he's not even there to help. And they just got gashed by Jordan Mason. So I'm excited to see what. Excited to see what Pollard's going to do. And then the Jets, even like if Will Levis has to throw it all, which I hope he doesn't, but even if he has to throw, Sauce Gardner got banged up and has had to play on a short week. Michael Carter too got banged up. He has to play on a short rest. So these are top guys on the defense who are injured. Then they don't have Hassan Reddick rushing the passer, whereas they had Bryce Huff last year. They don't have that dynamic edge rusher this year. So this Jets team has a lot of problems. Yeah, they have Aaron Rodgers and Breece Hall, but Breece Hall is a tough matchup here. Tennessee's great against the run. So Breece Hall is a guy who can just break one at any moment, but still, like, for the most part, he's going to be bottled up. And the Titans have 2 number 1 corners. So I love this Titans team. I think they're going to be underrated all year. I said it at the beginning of the season. I said this is a team I'm going to bet on heavily each week. Unfortunately, last week they had one of the bad beats of all time, as who said it here in the comments. Someone said it was that, Trent says Titans +4 last week, one of the worst losses I've ever had in a long time. I feel the same way. It was like on par with the Mac Jones taking a safety against the Raiders last year in the final play of the game. I'm huge on the Titans here. It's 5 unit play for me. So hopefully Will Levis doesn't screw up again.
That's all we can hope for, my brother.
I know. I'd be so much more confident as the Johnson Mason Rudolph was starting.
Yeah. I get it. Again, the whole thing about the backup quarterback, but no, same page here for sure.
Yeah, Rodgers wasn't bad. His receivers dropped balls, and the Niners dominated time possession. Yeah, he only made one mistake where he tried to force the ball and it got deflected. Outside of that, he played pretty well. So, So anyway, Kimmy Gill says Trent, the Seahawks faced a rookie quarterback making his first start on the road. Defensive line wasn't good putting pressure on the quarterback. Well, I'll say this about Bo Nix, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but because he's playing against TJ Watt, Bo Nix checks the ball down so quickly, it doesn't even matter who the pass rusher is. This like TJ Watt's there, TJ Watt's not going to get to him because he's just going to throw it as quickly as possible. And
Sean Payton is going to prepare that way.
Yeah,
because he's going to get embarrassed otherwise.
Yeah, for sure.
Might still get embarrassed.
Yeah. All right. Last of the early games, Giants at the Redskins. This is another one that's bounced between 1.5 and 2.5. Last I looked, it was 1.5. Looking right now, there are a couple 2s out there, but for the most part, it's 1.5. Actually, there are a couple 1s out there too. So basically, you get to pick your teaser leg here for the Giants if you want them. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think. Look, I took the Commanders on the money line. That's really where I thought there was value in this game. The Giants are just awful, and they were bottom tier, bottom 10, bottom 5, right, in yards per play. They just cannot get anything going. Daniel Jones is a walking time bomb, and I don't think there is anybody that is going to kill you more. We talked about some pretty bad quarterbacks. They're volatile in the sense of you never really know when it's going to happen, right? Bryce Young comes out and gets picked. Second play in the second half, he gets picked. But Daniel Jones, that's what made Will Levis so offensive, is that was on the level of Daniel Jones. I expect those types of plays from Daniel Jones here. And I don't know what's changing. What exactly is Brian Daboll going to do from last week to this week? I trust the coaching staff in Washington over New York. I trust the quarterback position in Washington over New York. And look, I think it was just difficult for what you saw week 1 with Washington, knowing the matchup and just knowing how you've got first-time coach / quarterback, at least in this tandem here, coming off of it. So I looked at the Commanders' overall contest. I figured, what are we going to get? -1.5, something along those lines there. But I'm not going to overreact, I think, to losing to the Bucs and Baker Mayfield, who are a decent team, especially at home. And looking at the fact that, look, Washington was still able to move the football. Daniels is a threat on the ground, and I think they're going to continue to work the offense around that, knowing that he can be. I don't know. There's way, way too much of the Giants' ineptitude and just utter propensity for failure for me to put money on them. So I would take them. I would take Washington in the contest too.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I was just about to ask you that. I like Washington a little bit. Not sure if I'm going to bet on them just because I feel like this team that hasn't done anything is favored. Just kind of weird. Plus, the Giants, as bad as they've been, they've done well for the most part against Washington. Is through the Daniel Jones era. Plus, both these teams have like similar problems defensively. They can't cover anything at all, and they don't. The Giants should have a pass rush too. They didn't have a pass rush for some reason last week. So I guess Minnesota's offensive line is pretty good. So maybe that was the reason. Brian Burns should do better here in this game. But both these secondaries are just awful. I just trust Jane Daniels more than Daniel Jones. This is what it comes down to. I trust almost every quarterback more than Daniel Jones.
Right. But Daniels can move, and that's what I think can negate that pass rush to an extent, especially as a rookie.
Right. And I think Malik Neighbors should have a big game against Washington's cornerbacks who are horrible. Then again, I think McLaurin's going to have a great game. Like I didn't like the Redskins at all last week just because the Buccaneers, while they've been horrible against the pass recently, they've done really well against mobile quarterbacks. And so I thought they'd be able to contain Daniels for the most part. And I just think this is a much better matchup for him. But I don't know if I just trust the Redskins enough to bet them as favorites yet. I want to get them as big underdogs where Daniels can get like a backdoor cover with his mobility. Like I feel like that's the ideal situation in which to bet them at the moment. But I am siding with them. I think they are the right side in this game. So if you want them on the card, I'm perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, I'm interested in them for sure.
Yeah. Gaming says, echoing what I said, Daniel Jones 5-1 versus the Redskins.
Yeah.
However, he is 0-0 against Jane Daniels.
Right.
Say that.
Right.
So yeah, he's played against some bad quarterbacks. That's true. Yeah, it is.
Ron Rivera is a guy that is just begging to be picked apart, especially at home.
Yeah,
he was a travesty.
he was so bad. He lived off that 1 year at the Panthers.
Incredible.
Yeah, it was really amazing how far he carried that. All right, so we have 3 late afternoon games. The first one is Rams at the Cardinals. The advanced spread on this game was Rams -2.5, so it moved 3.5 points. Now I know it wasn't through any key numbers. But still, Arizona is favored at the moment by 1. I have matchup TBA here because the Rams have question marks in their offensive line with the injuries. Rob Havenstein was out. So as soon as I saw the Havenstein news, I bet the Lions. So we don't know if Havenstein's going to play. We don't know if the other offensive lineman will play. Puka Nacua is out. He's on IR. Otherwise, we just don't know about the injuries yet in this game. But I am going to bet this one. What do you think of it? What do you think here?
I just stayed away. Way too many guys up in the air or out. Way too much volatility. The fact that we're still waiting, and I get it, it's Tuesday, so it's like, come on, you'd be waiting anyway. But I think we'll be waiting a little bit, especially as far as guys get listed and move closer to possibly playing. It's tough, and there was no real need for me to race to the window for this one because I was invested in a couple of other games. So no play for me, but I'm absolutely interested in where you're going here. I mean, I think there's probably value on both sides, looking at where the line you mentioned, it did go through, but I wouldn't be worried about lost value at that point if you wanted to take Arizona. I just had no real interest in this game.
Yeah, you're talking like percentage points, like the result of one team winning by 2-1. It is. You'd rather have the points, obviously, but at some instances, it's better just to like sell the big and just like I don't know. It's not a huge deal, although in before Rams win by 1. So anyway, I think that I like the Rams here. The NFC West is a weird division. It's kind of like rock, paper, scissors in a sense. Like the Rams always beat the Cardinals, but like the Cardinals give the Seahawks issues. The Rams always beat the Seahawks, but the Seahawks give the Niners issues, but the Niners crush the Rams. Like it is like this weird dynamic that happens in this division. Sean McVay against the Cardinals is 14-2. He just dominated this team. And I just don't think Arizona's done enough to kind of offset that. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. now, but he did nothing in week 1. I feel like he should have a better game, but still, I don't think Arizona. It's just like offensively they're fine. Defensively is the big issue here. Like I think they might have the worst defense in the NFL. They can't cover anyone at all. Like their cornerbacks are absolutely horrible. And I just think it's just a bad situation to be in against the Rams, who have Cooper Kupp, who's revived like suddenly. And then Demarcus Robinson had a good game. Tyler Johnson. I really like Jordan Whittington. I think he's a guy who, like, as the season progresses, he could become a player if Puka goes out for a while. So the Rams have plenty of weapons offensively. Kyron Williams against this bad Arizona run defense that had issues with James Cook. Like, they couldn't stop James Cook. Like, what's going to happen against Kyron Williams? I feel like Arizona, like the Rams, should be able to score on almost every possession here. Plus, they're going to be focused coming off a loss. And this is a team they always dominate. So I like the Rams here. It's not a huge bet, but it might make my card depending on what else happens.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to withhold because we're close to filling the card here, and I just I didn't have anything on there, so we could always come back for light. Okay. But this was not one that I was racing to go to. I don't disagree with you. I just didn't have it on there.
Okay. So it was just brought up here. Rams back-to-back road games doesn't favor them. Luckily, we have killersports.com where you can type in any query. So since Sean McVay took over in 2017, teams on the second leg of a back-to-back road swing are 265 and 258 against the spread. It's 50.7%. So don't worry about taking road teams in back-to-backs. It's actually favorable for you to do so just by a little bit, but it's probably like long term it's gonna be 50%. It's just one of those things evens out. Like I don't think it has any bearing. It's not like these teams are traveling the Oregon Trail or something,
Right.
Like, it's travels like easier than ever. I wouldn't worry about it.
By the way, have you played the updated version of that game?
No, I did not. I didn't know they had one. How was it?
On the Xbox.
Oh my God, really?
So I've got the Xbox, I don't know, S or X, and then the PS5, and I'm just waiting for one of the boys in the house to be old enough to play. So I'm still playing, right? Like Madden, college, that drops. And I was looking at this. My wife's a teacher, and I was looking at this, and I was trying to find stuff that I could play in front of my kid out, like Fallout. I can't really do that. Wife's like, what is going on? Like these energy weapons and shit blasting away. So I found the Oregon Trail, and it's still the Oregon Trail, and it's still all the same massive, Chimney Rock is still there, right? All that stuff, but it's updated for the next gen systems, and you have all these different things, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool for sure. If anybody who grew up in that era of Oregon Trail should check it out.
Oh man, I have to get it. I'm still waiting on an update for Willie Beamish. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It was like one of the all-time games. It was so good.
Willie Beamish?
Willie Beamish, yeah. So this kid who wants to play at it's Nintari. So Nintari, he wants to play at a Nintari tournament. You basically have to like survive 4 days without getting sent to boot camp because like you keep getting in trouble, and so you have to keep doing these things to like stay out of trouble.
Wow.
Yeah. That was such a cool game. I loved it.
Is it like a role playing game, or was it like an action game? What is this?
Yeah, it's like a click and point game where you have to not get beaten up by bullies and stuff, or you have to like not get sent to detention, and stuff like that. It was I used to play it all the time as a kid. It was so good. Anyway, Kim McEagle says correct, Walt. So weird that it's a good bet to take Arizona and Seattle Arizona. NFC West is so strange, but these games are like these matchups are so scripted unless there's like some crazy injuries. Rams down O-line, Cardinals pass rush non-existent. Yeah, this is one of the games where the offensive line injuries don't matter too much. Like obviously you'd rather have Havenstein there, but like it's not going to make a huge difference if he's not there. So anyway, second late afternoon game, Bengals at the Chiefs. This was supposed to be the big marquee game. I guess it still is, but Bengals were so bad last week. So the advanced spread on this game was Chiefs -3.5. It's gone all the way to 6. I don't have a strong opinion on this one really. So what do you think here?
Chiefs -5.5 for me. This was the one I wanted to put in the call at 5.5. Okay. I don't know. Do you think we're going to get 5.5?
I'm looking at every relevant sportsbook right now.
I got this 5.5 yesterday on DraftKings.
So bookmaker has -5.5. Every other book I see it has 6 at the moment. And what the big one is the Westgate, which it's not in this column, but Circa has 6, so it's at least gonna be 6 in the Circa. But we still have less than 24 hours till the lines come out. So maybe it will fall to 5.5, but it's like I said, it's 6 across the board. But still,
if you were neutral to all things and you had the line as the only variable from 5.5 to 6, and I made a compelling point for the Chiefs, how much of an influence would it be we had to take it at 6 versus 5.5 on the card for you?
It would be a bigger deal for 6.5. So hopefully it doesn't move to that in the next 24 hours, because it's a loss at 6.5. Obviously, if it lands on
massive
6,
loss, right?
But at least you get half a point for a push, so it's not the end of the world. So I like the Chiefs at 6. I'm
okay.
I didn't have like a good reason to bet them, but maybe you can convince me to do so.
Look, at 5.5, I thought there was going to be significant value, and clearly it's moving. And I think you and I did this a couple of years now, last year with the contest, but even before that, when we were just doing week to week. And some of what I'm doing is just trying to get ahead of movement, right? And the NFL is a numbers game, and I've learned a lot from just doing stuff with you about that. So this was looking to get ahead of line movement, knowing that if this does close at, let's say, 6.5, that's a significant get at 5.5. But I'm also looking at what happened with Cincinnati. Now, look, some of that is anomaly. We talked about not buying into New England because of the way in which Cincinnati just embarrassed themselves. But those were a couple of plays, like those were negative X plays, right? Ridiculous turnovers, bad special teams. But ultimately, they weren't able to move the football either. And this was not a team that was just bit because of that. Those mistakes fueled or helped aid a loss. But it's not like even the Titans game, right, Walt, where we saw the Titans dominate and lose because of a couple fluke things. I think ultimately Cincinnati, and we saw earlier was a John in the chat reference Joe Burrow's wrist. There's a lot with Cincinnati right now. Their inability to generate yards, concern about the quarterback, concern about this offense without having main guys in there, chase or not, what have you. Clearly the line is indicating, the movement at least, that there's no concern there from Kansas City side. At home in September, Andy Reid, Mahomes, you can look at the trends there. Loves the aggression for Spags' defense, especially if he can smell blood in the water with a guy like Burrow. So I think the Chiefs at home to cover anything 6 or better is fine with me.
Yeah, so Kel's saying these teams play close every time. Look ahead was 3.5. Mm-hmm. This is definitely an overreaction. So I guess this is the reason why I didn't plan to bet the Chiefs. Maybe this is like sticker shock to me, where I thought it was gonna be like 3.5 the entire time, and then I saw it was gonna be 6, and so I was like, it's not a great number. Maybe I won't bet it, but there's a lot wrong with the Bengals. Like, you detail, like Joe Burrow with his wrist, like you said, not 100%. Jamar Chase, I don't think is 100%. He's kind of like iffy with his workouts. He didn't know if he was going to play even. And who knows, maybe this is the week he decides to hold out too. Like that's always a possibility, because then he hasn't re-signed. T. Higgins, we had a question to John asking, is he back this week? I don't know yet. We haven't had a practice report, so I assume he's going to be. He has a better chance to play, but we just don't know that. Also, Bengals can't stop the run. They're missing DJ Reader. It's a huge problem last week, and so Isaiah Pacheco, who played well in the opener, he could always do well. Although I will say Andy Reid does sometimes forget the running portion of his playbook, but still, even if he throws a lot, Cincinnati's cornerbacks suck. Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill, like I don't have much faith in these guys. They weren't tested last week at all against the Patriots receivers, and now they will be. And that goes back to what Kel was saying, like these teams play close, and they have in the past 2 years. But the past 2 years, the Chiefs haven't really had receivers. Like in addition to Rashee Rice, who was a rookie last year, they have him now. They have Xavier Worthy, who had made some big plays last week. They might get Marquise Brown back this week, but even if they don't, they still have enough weapons to really put up a ton of points here against the Bengals. And if Burrow's not healthy, and it doesn't seem like he is, I think the Bengals might have issues just keeping track or just keeping up with the Chiefs. Also, you have to consider this, like the Bengals in weeks 1 and 2, they're just awful. The same thing with like Sean Payton, like under Joe Burrow. In weeks 1 and 2, I think they're 1-7 straight up and 2-6 against the spread. Just an awful starting team. And I thought it might reverse last week because they actually talked about it. You know, Burrow was, I think, in a preseason interview, he's saying, "Oh, we have to get off to a better start this year." Yeah. They didn't. So I don't know what's wrong with this team in September. They just suck, and then they get going. I think they're going to suck this week, and eventually they're a team we're going to bet on, but not now. So I think I just convinced myself to bet the Chiefs here. So.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you, brother. Again, I'm already on the board there. There's something about playing the Chiefs in Kansas City, and you need a rock. Not having a guy like Joe Mixon now, you need a rock to remember and remind yourself. You're talking about Andy Reid abandoning the run. Think about how many teams go in there and abandon the run because they think they need to compete with Mahomes throwing. And the reality is the Chiefs can just hit you with Pacheco. They can control the clock. And Cincinnati, I guarantee you, just look how fast they abandon the run, even if it's working, because they're going to have to think, at least they're going to have to compete with Mahomes and this Chiefs offense, especially as you alluded to or laid out, actually, the receivers.
Right. Are you there? You froze. I don't know if you guys can hear me or if you guys can hear Eytan. I usually don't know what happens when someone freezes. Are you back?
Yeah,
you froze for a second. Okay, yeah. Go ahead. I don't know.
It's just a bad matchup.
Yeah.
Yep. No, and look, I'm not looking at the Bengals as far as there was something about there was something in the chat playing close. Oh, the overreaction. Well, look, they lost to the Patriots. That's not an overreaction, right? You lose to a decent team. You come out and you lose to the Eagles or the Cowboys, or you lose to Detroit, right? Okay. You lost to the Patriots at home. That's not an overreaction. I think to look at that and say there are problems with this football team. Kansas City, it's amazing how they haven't coasted through the month of September and that they actually have and address the month as important if you look at their ATS record as far as they, meaning coach quarterback. So I'm with you, man. This is on the card for me.
I just looked this up. Cal says, look at Mahomes' record when favored by 4.5 or more. They play a lot of close games. So I did look this up. So let's ignore like the super high spreads, like 7.5 or more, because this does not apply here. Lines from 4.5 to 7. The Chiefs under Mahomes, 16-15 against the spread. So they can certainly get there. So don't worry too much about that. Cincinnati's poor the first 2 weeks of the year. Exactly. They just, for some reason, they start so slowly. Henry asking how the Cincinnati run game matchup with Kansas City defense. So the Chiefs are worse against the run than the pass, but I don't think Zach Moss or Chase Brown are going to threaten them. This is not a good run. Well, first of all, these running backs are not that good. And second, the Bengals, like historically just can't run block. I mean, just look what Joe Mixon did in week 1 against the Texans. He just went off where like last year and a couple of years beforehand, he just never had these big games because they just never opened up running lanes for him.
Yep. Love it.
Because it's not a very good number.
It's not a good number either way, though, would be my answer. Like, I don't think you could leverage that either way.
Right. Exactly. It's not like 8-15 where it's like, okay, maybe we should look into not betting this. It's a 50-50 coin flip as far as them being favored and the 16-15 is 51.6% against the spread.
I think the point's valid in the sense of looking at it from the standpoint of he doesn't dominate in this position. He doesn't, like, they don't comfortably blow teams out every time they're favored by 6+ at home. But I don't think in this particular case, looking at the nuance of the game, Kel, that it's enough to deter me.
Yeah, home, by the way, 9-7 against the spread. Okay. Who was the competition? It's kind of irrelevant because it's a spread each time. You know, like if the Chiefs are favored by 6 over another opponent, you know, it's the sportsbook's telling you that like the Chiefs are 6 points better than this opponent each time. And it should be the same thing. So Now, if you want to argue that, yeah, maybe you're not getting good line value here, I think that's the only argument against the Chiefs.
Right.
But like I said, I think this is sticker shock, and just based on how injured Burrow might be and how injured or out of shape the receivers are and how much the defense has regressed and how poorly the Bengals usually play in the first 2 weeks of the season, I think this might be a fair number. In fact, it might be too low. So yeah. Is that okay? Yeah. I mean, look, we've been wrong. We could be wrong again. But I do think the Chiefs are the way to go here. All right. Late afternoon game, Steelers at the Broncos. So this line was it was 2.5 on the advanced spread. It shot up to 3. 3 plus 100. So not like the full 3 there. So what are you thinking here? I'm not like I feel like of all the games this week, this has the highest chance of pushing. Like I feel like this is like made to be Pittsburgh winning by 3.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely feels like, and I think Mike Tomlin has a pretty good record against rookie quarterbacks. You can look at that, and that's something, especially with Watt and a defense that they know they can get to. So I think that would have me leaning towards Pittsburgh. But yeah, I don't want to bet this game. Like I don't want to put this game on the card. There's too much volatility in there on either team. Pittsburgh's offense with Justin Fields, there's no revenge game, right? It looks like with Russell Wilson. So I think the matchup that I would defer to would be Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh defense against Bo Nix. But man, Walt, I don't want any part of this game on my card.
Yeah, I don't either. It goes 2.5 maybe, but a 3 just it's not really. I don't see any value there, and I do like that dynamic. You have the great defensive minded coach against a rookie quarterback. That's something I do like to play, and I will mention in the next game. I like Bo Nix versus Mike Tomlin just seems like a disaster for Denver, especially given how like poorly Sean Payton does in the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah,
Talked about Joe Burrow's record in the first 2 weeks. Sean Payton in the first 2 weeks of the season in the past 20 games is 3-17 against the spread. Ooh. Just horrible. This is not a team you want to bet on early. And I mentioned it last year. The Broncos' first 2 games, this is not just like a Saints thing because they had the Raiders at home and the Redskins at home, and they lost both outright as favorites. So, like, now they get this Pittsburgh team, and I do think this is going to be like a low-scoring grinder, like 16-13. I put 16-12 on the site just to have one team covering, but as like you said, I don't think this is the way to go. Although Cam Aiken Eagle says the under, yes, for sure. Let's see. The August games of the sleepers. Steelers special teams are great. They will force turnovers. Yeah, it's always fun to watch the defense for sure. You have died of dysentery. Yeah,
always that's still there.
Yeah, for sure. Steelers, Broncos, Mile High battle of field goal kickers for 50, 60 yards. Yeah, maybe they'll kick that 71-yarder if Aubrey ever gets there, which I wish they would have done last week. So.
I think there's probably going to be some really good value there. If you do pick them, probably get some good fantasy points for like Boswell, for example, right? You probably get some really good value on that.
Yeah.
Harris in the receiving game, keep an eye on that.
Yeah, Justin Fields, running around, he's always a threat. I felt so smart because I don't want to like. I feel like talking about best ball is boring, but like I used to like in best ball, I drafted like Justin Fields in the 16th round of like every draft I did. I'm like, why is this guy going so late? He's going to start games, and I felt so smart that he was starting week 1. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome, and then he got like 7 fantasy points.
Nice.
So anyway, all right, Sunday night game, Bears at the Texans. Talk about sticker shock here too. The Texans were 3.5 on the advanced spread. This has moved 3.5 points. And I was really hoping that the public or whoever moved these lines, it's actually 6.5 in some books. But anyway, I was hoping like whoever posted these lines would like not see how bad the Bears were last week, because the Bears were the Titans had almost double the yardage that the Bears had. Like it was disgusting how lopsided the game was. And so I feel like anyone who saw the Bears win was like, oh, they're okay. They're 1-0. And let's keep it around 3.5 or 4. But unfortunately, they moved it through 6 and now 6.5 or even 7. So I'm still betting the Texans though, even though this is a bad number. So what do you think about this game?
Not on my card.
Okay.
I think the Texans are a great teaser play here this week. Bring them down. You can, 6 point, 7 point, what have you, and kind of get around the line movement. Hard to think that Chicago walks into Houston and wins the game. Whether or not they backdoor cover is irrelevant if you use them in that teaser piece, parlay piece. If you wanted to break it down, maybe if you wanted to use like an alt -2.5 or something, but I wouldn't. I just use them in a teaser there. I'm with you. I am under the 8.5 wins for Chicago. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't start off 0-1, but Caleb Williams is a guy that Chicago's going to have to hide in this offense more than rely on this year. And we just saw that's not going to change week to week. This is a tough team, man. Houston is a tough team. That coach is no joke. You and I watched him play here. Like that's a team that we see this, right? With younger coaches. Look at Detroit. That team is that guy's identity. And I think you're starting to see that with CJ Stroud is not the most overwhelming, not overwhelming, but in your face guy. He's very humble and he's very day to day. The dynamic of that team week to week on the field is DeMeco Ryans. And I think that's it. No, give me Houston in this. It's not on my card because of that larger number. I wouldn't be shocked, however, if they did blow them out by 14, 17 points. I don't buy anything about Caleb Williams, especially after that win last week.
Yeah, no, he was pretty bad. Although I'll say this, I was really disappointed that they didn't upgrade the offensive line at all in the offseason. They had so much money and they didn't do it. Yeah, they got Keenan Allen and they overspent on DeAndre Swift, but they didn't touch the trenches, which I thought was a pretty big mistake. But no, I do like the Texans quite a bit here. This is another situation where you have a great defensive-minded coach against a rookie quarterback, and I think that DeMeco Ryans could just make Caleb Williams' life like pretty miserable. And I just don't know how the Bears are going to defend the Texans. I mean, they have a couple really good pieces. They have the two good linebackers. They have Montez Sweat, they have Jalen Johnson, but they have a lot of holes in the defense too. They had trouble stopping Tony Pollard last week. I feel like Joe Mixon is just going to have a big game. And then the three receivers. So Jalen Johnson is going to be on one of them, but you still have Stephon Diggs, you still have Tank Dell, you still have Dalton Schultz if Johnson's on Collins, for example. It feels like too much for the Bears to handle here. And I think this could almost be a statement game for the Texans because they didn't, as far as I know, I don't think they played on national TV last year. This is the first time this is the first time they get to showcase themselves in front of a national audience. So I think they're going to be pretty hyped up for this game to kind of just show everyone how great they are. I think this is a big deal for them. So I think they're going to be pretty hyped for this game, even though it's a non-conference game. So I like the Texans. I think they win very easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that on the card for Walt?
Might be. I haven't finalized my card yet, but it is might be fourth or fifth on the card. But we'll see. I do like quite a bit this week. So Washington, Houston going to steamroll the Bears. Yeah, I totally agree. Playing Texans and Survivor, so it's kind of tricky with Survivor. If you play the Texans, you kind of have to map this out. In week 9, you're going to actually be trapped into taking with Levis, I think, if you take the Texans here, because the Texans have the Patriots in week 9. So just be careful. There are a lot of good options this week. So my recommendation is just plan this out and just and see what works for you. Let's see. Houston won in a tough environment. Yeah, Indy crowd. Yeah, it was a tough environment. Yeah, it's going to be a lot easier. Kimmy Kingle says, Caleb Williams, 29 passes for 93 yards at home. Yeah, I would say this Tennessee's defense is legit, but Houston's defense is pretty good too. And
they're well coached.
Yeah,
it's not just Ryans that they've got a good staff. They're going to come up with a game plan to take advantage of that offensive line for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Monday night. This is our hometown team here. Falcons at the Eagles. It's another game that moved a lot. The advanced line was 3.5 or maybe 4. It's gone to 6.5. Hasn't quite gone to 7 in any sportsbook I see. So what are you thinking here? Do you think the Eagles cover this one?
Yeah, this is another one here, right? We just talked about Houston. So I think there's a 6-point parlay teaser that you could run with the Eagles and Houston and get them both down, right? basically Eagles to a pick, Houston to 1. That would be an angle here. I mean, I just don't know what you're going to get. Looking at it from Atlanta's side, what are you going to get from their offense that's going to keep up with the Eagles offense? And that's really what I'm looking at, right? And thinking, okay, the Eagles defense, a lot of that was Green Bay and just both sides kind of getting their footing, no pun intended there, down in Brazil. I trust that Vic Fangio is going to be able to get something working here in the next couple of weeks. But the fact is that offense can put up points. So now we look at this and say, all right, well, what is Kirk Cousins going to give this offense? And how are they going to be more two-dimensional behind Cousins to keep up on the road prime time? And you can look at all the other prime time stuff that, Cousins has gone through, right? And his record aside, I just don't know what Atlanta is really going to do to keep up from an offensive standpoint. So it's the home opener. They come back from Brazil. This place is, as you know, buzzing right now for Eagles football. And I think the team realizes that they didn't really get a shot to kind of be connected with the NFL in week 1. They were all the way in Brazil. So I think there's going to be a sense of if they can run it up, if they can put up some points, you're going to see some plays deep downfield from Kellen Moore. I like the Eagles, but again, I didn't put it on the card because I think there are some better plays outside of 6, even though the Chiefs are probably going to have to take it 6.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I'm going to be on the Eagles, but I don't think I'll be betting them. I think the main concern here, outside of like the Falcons still gelling, they didn't play in the preseason all, so they still have to develop with each other. Kirk Cousins, when facing pressure, it's just so bad. Like he's like obviously any quarterback when they face pressure is gonna be worse. But if you look at like the breakdowns, the stats, like quarterbacks when kept clean versus under pressure, like Kirk Cousins has one of the largest dichotomies in the NFL. He just melts down with pressure. We saw it last week. He just holds on to the ball too long. TJ Watt just swats the ball out of his hands. He's just a mess. And the Eagles can get after the quarterback like pretty well. So I think Cousins is going to struggle. And he has a history of struggling in Philadelphia. And it's funny. It's like week 2, Cousins comes to town every single year. Week 2, 2022, Eagles crushed the Vikings. Week 2 last year, Eagles beat the Vikings, so they didn't cover. It depends what number you had. And then now Cousins comes to the Philadelphia week 2, all night games, by the way. So I just has a bad history here against his defense, not play well against his defense at all. I think that he's going to lose this game. My worry, though, is that the Eagles secondary has some issues. We saw it in Brazil. The Packers hit some big plays, and Cousins has some nice weapons, and Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Like, my worry with taking the Eagles is I think that Cousins could get a backdoor cover. I think of all, like, these 6.5 or 6 point favorites or underdogs that we're talking about, like, of all of them, I think Cousins has the best chance at backdoor cover. So that
looking at the other ones, right, in the KC game and the Houston game,
yeah,
this is the one where there's a backdoor cover for sure.
Yeah, that's what I worry about here. So I don't know if I'm going to bet this game, maybe a unit. But I do like your idea of teasing down 6 points. One of the teams in your teaser is on my personal teaser as well. So I'll get to that in a second. But
nice.
This will not be on the card for me. Like I said, I do like the Eagles.
Cool.
Cool. Joe Carter wrecked the interior line. Yeah, that's. I like I said, the Eagles are going to get a lot of pressure, but it's like what's going to happen in the fourth quarter? Like some nonsense could happen. It could certainly go that way. Texans leading the league in rushing, mixed in HB1. Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
By the way, FanDuel in PA here still has 5.5 for Kansas City. I was looking to build a teaser.
Oh, no. Okay. All right. I might get into that. So, all right. So with our card, I have 2 definites down. I have 1 good bet, and then I have actually I didn't put Kansas City down, did I? No. All right, so I have 6 down, and obviously we can discuss this later in the week. I have Green Bay +3, Tennessee +3.5, Kansas City -5.5, Washington -1.5, Las Vegas +9.5, and Dallas -6.5. I'm pretty confident you want to keep Green Bay, Tennessee. I'm very confident you want to keep Kansas City, Washington. So I think it's going to come down to Raiders, Cowboys. Am I right?
Raiders, Cowboys, or I can move on Washington.
I I mean, I like Washington more than Dallas.
Okay.
So if I had to, my personal preference would be to keep the top 5 and not Dallas. But
let's
do
that. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I did not have more conviction either way.
Okay.
In fact, I did not bet Dallas. I did bet Washington in real life. So,
Sue says moneyline parlay: Chiefs, Lions, and Texans. Seems good to me. I think all three should hit. Although I do worry about Tampa backdoor cover, but I think the Lions will win. So my teaser, I kind of said this before. I like the Texans side, especially because you go from 7 to 1. You don't get the full 7, but you get you move off of 7 to 1 rather than Philly, where you go 6.5 to a half, which is not as appealing. So I like to go up through 7 as well. So Rams from 1.5 to 7.5. So this is what I'm going with this week, and hopefully I remember to bet the teaser this time, which means no one in this house gets sick, which would be nice.
Right. That's why.
Exactly. All right. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks so much, guys, for watching and commenting. Yeah, really appreciate it. Eytan, want to plug anything on the way out?
Easiest thing is at Shander Bets on Twitter, and follow along. My marketplace link is there for picks and all, and that's it. Thanks, brother. See you next week.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, we'll be talking later in the week to kind of finalize our card. But yeah, always love these Tuesday shows with the first picks breakdown. I'll be back tomorrow, I think, with Kenny to do DFS, or someone to do DFS with. Thursday with Tom. Going to update the picks after the Thursday night game, and then I'll be back on Saturday for one final look at the week. So please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would be really appreciated. And once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. But yeah, have a great night, guys, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.